Good morning, everybody. And I guess it's good afternoon also at places. Uh, my various colleagues have joined in today's seminar. Today, I would be talking about an aspect which I have been working on for the last couple of years across the Bay of Bengal, including the three specific countries of Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. The title of my presentation is The Fisherwomen Across this Bay of Bengal region, especially bordering the western fringes, the northern and the western fringes of the Bay of Bengal, comprising the countries of Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka, and the extension of their profession towards understanding the contribution of the woman as a vital part of community, their symbolisms of sustainability, survival, and continuity. The format of my presentation would follow. I would like to introduce the region first and thereby move on to speak about the fishermen, women of India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Then I would like to move on and highlight a few aspects of the alternative methods of income through arts, crafts, livestock, and others in India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. And then I would like to conclude my topic. So to move on talking about this area of Bay of Bengal, it's important to understand the region of study, the geographic location of study. This region, this huge water body, is an embodiment of the northeastern Indian Ocean and occupies an area of around 839,000 square miles. It is around 1,000 miles wide and has an average depth of more than 8,500 feet. India, in this huge section alone, has around more than 9 million active line. In between, around 80% are small-scale fishers. Our sector of fisheries in India alone employs 9 million people and contributes towards 1.1% of the GDP of India. Now, in the middle of the entire fisher folk, contributing not only from India, but also including the regions of Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, stands the woman community, the woman people of the same community, within the same community. They have been contributing through generations and is also supplementing the family income through alternative methods of income, as well as maintain themselves as the main channels of various elements of intangible cultural heritage, including traditional methods of fishing. This particular study wants to highlight some of their aspects pertaining to their contribution towards the main profession, which is fishing, as well as how much they also help to contribute towards these alternative methods of income to sustain the family on one hand, and on the other hand, the larger picture says that it also helps to maintain certain aspects of intangible cultural heritage within the community. Now, historically...
Excuse me, Dr. Lopamudra.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, your volume is very low, and please speak up, and your mic is...
Okay, can you hear me now? Am I clear?
People, yes.
Am I clear now?
More louder.
Am I clear now, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So historically speaking, this area has occupied a very significant region, a very important section as far as trade and commerce goes. Archaeologically, this trade and commerce can be traced as far back as 4th century BCE. And interestingly enough, marine products as part of regular diet has also been seen to go far as back as the Holocene period, around 6200 BC, as seen from archaeological evidences from Sri Lanka. Being a busy region, whether I'm talking about maritime activities in trade and commerce, or for that matter, fishing as an occupation, the region continues to be a very important section in the present times. A busy area, there have been various agreements drafted between countries which looks after the trade and commerce as well as occupation in this region. So to say for example, BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation with the member states of Bangladesh, India, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Thailand. There are 14 priority sectors over here of cooperation, of which the 6th sector looks into fisheries. There is also a very important aspect of the Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ, which has divided the water body between Bangladesh, India, and Myanmar. However, what is important to highlight here is, in spite of all of these agreements, the situation doesn't seem to be very calm in the region. Often, foreign boats are arrested, fishermen get arrested in the process. There are clashes between fishermen from different countries who are often caught fishing in an EEZ of another country's water. And thereby, these regular uncertainty adds to the woes of the fisher folk. Adding to this are natural calamities, like the present situation of the COVID-19 pandemic, almost bringing the entire profession of the region to a sudden halt. In spite of this, the work of the fisherwoman is very, very important, but very limited in the region. These are often considered as marginal activities, hardly given the same significance which is generally given to the fishermen who go out into the main waters of the Bay of Bengal in large boats and trawlers for fishing. And the main activities of the fisherwoman are generally limited to aspects like selling fishes, catching various aquatic products like seaweed, crabs, prawns, often through traditional methods, or helping in the making of handicrafts to add to the family income. Across the last several years, there have been many organizations, NGOs per to say, national as well as international, as well as initiatives on part of the different governments, which has contributed and encouraged the participation of the women in the region. This is something I wanted to share, particularly because the general reflection of women in the Bay of Bengal, fisherwomen, is very limited in nature. This particular calendar dating from the 1998, the details of the calendar are given on the right-hand side. Drawings by E. Emalore practically highlights the fisherwoman of the Bay of Bengal region. And I have tried to incorporate one picture pertaining to each of the countries that I would be speaking about today. About India, there are different states which borders the Bay of Bengal, including West Bengal, Orissa, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and the Union Territory of the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands. Work limited in nature for the fisherwomen can only be seen in areas of catching small fry, crabs and prawns, and shrimp, or capturing and mollusks or shells, or maybe hand braiding of fishing nets. Sometimes the fisherwomen are helped by the Fisheries Department of India or the work of several NGOs who are working in this area, the states particularly. They often help these fisherwomen to economically stabilize their family income by extending self-help groups, social groups also. And there have been many success stories over the years as a result of this very planned economic development. I would like to highlight here a very interesting fact which comes from the state of Orissa, which is bordering the northern part of the Bay of Bengal from India, that a self-help group constituted by the women has even led to the formation of a group called as Samudram, which also helps in the conservation and preservation of the endangered olive ridley turtle in the region. As a result of this conservation effort, fishing is banned in the region between November 1st to May 31st. I would also like to mention the contributions of the fisherwomen belonging to different ethnic tribes from the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands of India. Interesting to see, in the islands, they fish alongside the men. There are generally no distinction available or seen. They can be seen to fish in the shallow reefs, as well as the rocky areas, as well as during the night time. More importantly, the methods used by these women, just like the men of the region, are often the traditional methods. I would be showing some examples in one of my later slides. Also, very interesting to understand is the traditional knowledge consisting both the men and the women of the region, which helps them in fishing, also warranting them beforehand about natural calamities like cyclones, rain, wind, waves, water currents, or anything related to similar such natural calamities with the water. Moving on to looking at Bangladesh, this is another picture from the same 98 calendar. The role of women, just like India, is often relegated to the background. It is estimated that around 30% of the women in the rural coastal areas are directly or indirectly engaged in small-scale fishery activities. The regions often include areas of Borishal and Rajshahi district, where women are often involved in areas of fish capture, selling, drying, and curing of both freshwater and sea products, or the Chittagong and the Khulna district, where women are generally seen to be involved in shrimp processing plants. A very important part of a congress being held, particularly only including the fisherwomen, organizing their family income, sustainability, and helps them further to organize themselves as a community at the whole. The women contributing towards fish processing and preserving is a very vital aspect, which also extends its helping hand to export sector of the country, and also the saving groups which I just spoke about. Moving on to the last section of my region of study in Sri Lanka, the story of Sri Lanka constitutes the region of the northern and the eastern fringes of Sri Lanka, which borders the Bay of Bengal. However, the documentation from Sri Lanka is very limited in nature for the unfortunate war, the political conflict, which the country faced for 3 decades. The war affected the entire country nonetheless, but the regions of the northern and the eastern sections, which I would be looking into, were highly and greatly affected. So much so that areas were highly crippled through loss of equipments, lives, and infrastructure, and thus very heavy restrictions. The fishery sector, which was greatly affected in the region, was one of the major sectors which the government also took into discussion once the war ended in 2009. Because of all of these problems, the documentation during these 3 decades is very limited in nature from the region of study. However, I would like to highlight here that these are very vital elements to look into, particularly to understand the non-traditional roles of women, as well as the traditional maritime practices to support community in times of disaster, like the political conflict which was going on over there. The post-war data is very limited from very small sections. Here I would like to mention about a region of Trincomalee from the eastern coast of the country, bordering the Bay of Bengal. The fisherwomen in the region is highly divided as far as ethnicity and religion goes. There are women comprising of Sinhalese Buddhist community, Sri Lankan Tamil Hindu community, or the Sri Lankan Moor community, the Muslims. And there are other ethnic communities, the Vedar women. The Sinhalese and the Tamil women are generally involved in selling fishes, while the Muslim women are seen to be involved in gleaning of clams and mollusks from the mud or collecting seaweeds. Very interestingly enough, over here is the contribution of the Vedar ethnic community women of the region, who are seen to take part in the fishing activities just alongside the men to draw up the catch on shore. In Sri Lanka, the other activities of women pertaining to fishery sector is severely restricted in comparison to the other countries of the region. Now, historically speaking, fishing as an occupation was highly restricted to the main folk of the region, mostly dominated by the men. In the post-war period, some sections has opened up for the women. Say, for example, the pictures that shows over here, seaweed collecting or fish drying. Also, very limited and highly divided in nature between the religious and the ethnic sections of the community. Finally, thus, if these are the women folk of the community, it brings us to look into a very high important sector of how these women folk contribute to the family income through other alternative methods. These, while introducing India, this is an interesting example from the region of West Bengal, referred to as Macher Biye from the local language, which speaks about a scroll painting done by women and speaks about a song which is mentioned on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, explains, the essence explains that a group of fish attending a friend's marriage, a huge fish not being invited causes disruption by gobbling up the remaining fish, thereby creating a complete pandemonium. Art, a very vital, a very interesting art, which is famous as a scroll painting from the region, not only across India, but in different parts of the world, and often is narrated in a format of music. It is narration is done through a singing pattern as the painter unrolls the scroll. And this particularly is a very important painting in relation to the women folk. Other aspects from the same region of West Bengal includes very fantastic creations of art using fish scales. Examples shown over here includes necklaces, earrings, decorative items. Moving on to more interesting aspects, one of my very favorite ones that looks into a sequence from the Indian famous epic, the Mahabharata, which looks into the narration of Krishna, Lord Krishna, to Arjuna in the battle of the Kurukshetra, which the sequence is compiled into religious text of the Gita. A very interesting and another favorite of mine is this creation of the meditating Buddha from different phases of the Buddha's life, also including the same creation by fish scales. From other states of India, the contribution of women includes mollusks and shell work from the states of Orissa, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and a very interesting example I wanted to cite over here, ranging from the time period of the 2004 December tsunami, the contribution of women, the fisherwomen, making rag dolls to supplement family income, Tsunamika. This became very famous and helped a lot in sustaining the immediate disaster that most of the fisher folk, the communities, faced as a result of the tsunami. Here I would like to highlight from the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands certain aspects of the traditional methods of fishing which is used, as I mentioned earlier, by both the men and the women, Something to note over here is the massive use of plastic. Unfortunate, nevertheless, they often use this plastic waste to add to these traditional methods of fishing as a bait use. Looking at the neighboring region of Bangladesh, the income, the supplementary income of women folk includes net making, cage culture, fish farming, poultry rearing, ducks and chicken, small dairy products like goats and cows, handicraft items like making or sewing or embroidery, or even starting new business ventures like small grocery shops, tea stalls, as well as plant nurseries. These are variously encouraged by NGOs as well as the governmental bodies. Finally, looking into Sri Lanka, as mentioned earlier, the role of fisherwomen being very limited in nature, they are often encouraged by NGOs as well as the governmental bodies to look into alternative methods of income, and they are practically the primary people who look into this as well as supplement their households. Here I would like to highlight the kind of handicrafts they make, products of wood, mollusks, as well as coconut algae, as well as animal husbandry, sewing clothes, ecotourism, and also aloe vera farming for use in medicine and cosmetics. These are often seen to be in the parts of the lagoons on the eastern as well as the northern parts of Sri Lanka. Finally, I come to look at what has really happened across the last months in the region. It is interesting to see some part is seen to be some newspapers often speak about the plight of the fishermen of the region. However, very little is spoken about when it comes to the plight of the fisherwomen. How are they doing? How are they supplementing the family income? My extensive research across the last several months could only yield one single report, which comes from not the area of my study, but from the western coastline of India, on the northern, towards the northern tip, from the region of Kerala. But however, I wanted to put this up from the leading Indian English daily, the Indian Express, dated 10th of July. And this is something that I found to reflect the plight and the woe of the fisherwomen of the entire region. Many of their husbands have lost the job, and the woman stands as the major role in the financial stability of the family. Many men have taken up the places of these women in the markets, resulting in many of these women also losing the job, as the customers often move on to the men who are new to selling fishes. Finally, I would like to come to the end, highlighting that the contribution of the woman is generally never recognized as far as whatever they are doing, supplementing the family income in the main profession or even in alternative professions. But say, for example, shrimp or prawn cultivation or farming in the region, woman contributes majorly. And something to note over here, prawns and fishing contributes to a major foreign exchange earnings of the region. So one can really understand how much activity and contribution of the women folk goes into sustaining this foreign exchange. Nevertheless, their recognition remains marginalized. Their voices remains marginalized, hardly spoken about, as I just mentioned, that even newspaper reports speaking about their condition during the last several months of lockdown, both complete and partial lockdown, is very, very limited in nature. Something that I would like to end by saying that since they do contribute towards such very important sectors, acting also at times as the true torch bearers of social cohesion and intangible cultural heritage, it is very important to spread the knowledge and highlight their contributions as part of the entire community. Thank you.